What's up, farmsteaders? Roosters are crowing. I wanted to post this video because I've had some people ask me, what in the world are we doing? And I want to share this with you. I want to share this with everybody. He's noisy. We have set up our summer breeding and grow out pens, and they have sparked some questions. Now, before I get into this, I want to state that I know there are literally 1,000 videos on cattle panel coops on YouTube already, okay? But this one in particular caught my attention, and it was from a guy. His YouTube channel is Mountain Rooster. No affiliation, no connection, no anything with that guy. He's got a beautiful homestead, and we have tried cattle panel hoops in the past. Greenhouses, grow out pens, whatever, chicken tractors. We have tried thousands of things. If it's on YouTube, we've done it. But what I did like about these, and what caught my attention mostly, was the fact that he used zero lumber to frame these out. Now, in his video, he did not explain everything in detail, but he goes over each individual piece and what he does to connect them and make them a unit, a whole. That's my other rooster. Well, you'll meet him in a second. So what we have here, if you allow me to share, is a simple hoop coop design made out of a cattle panel. So there it is. There's the hoop coop. There's the rooster. But we used 2 cattle panels for the arch, and we used 1 cattle panel to make both the front and the back. Simply added hardware cloth around the entire bottom, and then we did dog lot for our bigger birds here, just to keep things out and to keep them in. Now, around the property here, we do have a line of electric that runs that helps us, predator proof and keep critters away. Now, this here took some research and a couple of trial and errors. A lot of people have used tarps or plastic for this. What I used was silt fencing. It's a contractor barrier fencing, super inexpensive. It's like $38 for a 330-foot roll. It's 3 feet wide, so I used a couple layers of it and overlapped each one. And then down here, you can see that I added the silt fencing to the ground, and I am beginning to add wood chips. Now, the reason for this is because I want to keep weed and grass penetration at a minimum, and we are going to add another line of hot wire to the bottoms and the middle runs of these fences and keep it up close, maybe with about a 4-inch gap. And that will ensure that anything that wants to come into our pens can't, or get zapped trying. Now, we made these 2 super close to the compost pile, and the reason for that is because as we add bedding and flooring and hay and straw, we'll be able to simply clean those out and add them directly to the compost. This way we're not making a ton of trips, okay? Now, all we did was use hog rings, and I purchased a hog ring clip tool. It's a DeWalt, but I got it at Tractor Supply. It was not super expensive, and boy, did it make my life easy when it came to adding the hardware cloth and the wires in general. Around the entire outside of the pen, we have 24-inch hardware cloth. Underneath the ground that you can't see right now, we cut strips of hardware cloth and split it so there's 1 foot inside and 1 foot outside below the ground, so if anything did try to dig in and get to them, it's an instant barrier. We still need to add nest boxes and roosting bars. These were actually just put up within the last 2 days. I have a spot here for one more to be built. This is where the third one will go. And then, of course, everything will transition back as our breeding program grows and develops more. Now, in the videos that I've watched, a lot of people will use 2x4s, treated or not, and they'll actually build out a frame. I did not have to do that. What I used was, because we have a cow and I've just done some fencing for that cow, is I used 12.5 gauge high tensile fencing wire. And what I found with this wire is that I've measured out 7 feet, simply bent it with my fencing tool, my fencing pliers, and I use this. I stand up the panel, I'll hook this into one side, and then I will hold on to the other end, and I will bend the panel, and I will simply attach the other side, and then I'm able to flip the panel up and it stays in its position, and it works out nicely. And then once I'm done staking everything to the ground and adding the cloth and whatnot, the hardware cloth, I just flip these and remove them and use it for the next one. All we did for this setup here is we cut out this is just over 7 feet wide. If you use a tape measure and measure 7 feet, it puts you about right here. So you just go to the furthest one over, and it's just over 7 feet. I think 7.4, 7.5. I could be completely wrong about that. But all we did was we attached the bottom of the front to the arch, and we tied it with just some really inexpensive electric fence wire and just knotted it and made sure it stayed secure. That worked perfectly. These don't move. I mean, look at this. This thing will not move. It won't lift in the wind. Then after we added the hardware cloth, we went through, and at the bottoms, we made sure we put some staples or sod stakes, sod staples, be over the cattle panel and through the hardware cloth and pinned it to the ground. We did that for other reasons, because it holds the other hardware cloth that's buried underneath the surface in the ground also. And then we just used sod staples for our fabric, for our silt fence here, and nothing will really be able to penetrate through that. The wood chips will help the water deter away from the systems. It'll deter anything from growing up. And then, like I said, it keeps our electric fencing wire, once we wrap it around these coops, free of any debris or grass growth, so there's never a break in the electrical. Let's talk about the silt fence for just a second here. If you were to come out here on a hot day like today, it's getting warm, you can't really keep your hand on this for a long period of time. However, what this silt fence does, and it surprised me a lot, the silt fence actually, I mean, it dissipates the heat of the sun. It completely takes away the heat of the sun. And inside the coop versus outside the coop, it's easily a 15 to 20 degree difference. The birds have shade throughout the entire day. It bounces around with the position of the sun. Their water stays cool. Their food stays cool. Very little fly penetration, very little, insect annoyances. And then this one here is a tad bit different. I used the green cloth, which with electric, it works fine. I don't really have to worry about a lot of predators now. That's trial and error. A couple years of losing everything and having to restart. So, these birds are protected. But what we have in here is we have grow outs. These are 9-week-old Delawares, and they'll basically live in here until they produce an egg, and then they'll move to an egg flock. And these are classified as breeders, so they're not on a pasture system. These breeding flocks are special to us because we have a meat-producing flock, we have an egg-producing flock. We're currently working on a broody hen mothering flock that can self-hatch. We're trying to incorporate that more into our breeding program, which to the Delaware, that's almost a trait that is lost, specifically with Delaware broilers. We have Rhode Island Reds, we have Buff Orpingtons, and we will build a pen for each variety of these. And then come June, when our turkeys land and we start developing our heritage turkey flocks, we might do 2 or 3 different types, but throughout this whole area here that's fenced and wired, we can add as many of these as we want. We can make them as big as we want. We use 2 panels for each one. So it's right around 100 inches, just over 8 feet, and they're 7 feet wide-ish, 7 foot and a couple inches. For the doors, we simply cut out 1, 2, 3, 4 stays on a cattle panel. We built a spring hatch latch out of the 12.5 gauge fencing wire. We clothed it as well, but down here is most important. We've hardware clothed right here and left this open. And the reason is because the door overlaps. Well, we left that, and then we cut the stays out of here too. And what this does is it provides enough support for the door for it to close properly and be heavy enough to close. Now, all we used here was electric fencing wire, just a thin gauge. I believe that's 14 gauge, might even be smaller. And we just did that 3 times. And we made hinges on these doors that open and close very easily. Now, the only complaint I have about these is the height of the door. If you were to build a structure that had wood framing, you would be able to build up from there and support it more and create a wooden door that had hardware cloth in it, which was much taller. But I am 6 foot 2 inches tall. My wife would argue I'm 6'1" and a couple whatever, but I'm tall enough to stand in here. That means the birds are tall enough, or the birds have enough space to grow in here. And I can tell you the difference from being out there to being in here. It's much better. It's a completely different environment. Now, let's talk about the strength and durability of a cattle panel. As you can see, that's not a weak system. This is 2 panels tied together right there, okay? And again, fencing wire. That's all I used to tie them together. It doesn't move. It won't move. It's not easy to lift. And then in the back here for this bigger pen, we just used, I believe this is 2-inch chicken wire. Mostly this is designed to keep the birds inside of these coops so they don't end up in another pen or with another rooster and set us back 2 to 3 weeks in our breeding programs. So it's very important. It's more about keeping birds in than it is keeping things up. There's other infrastructure that you need to invest in to keep things out of your chicken coops, your pens, whatever you want to call them. Now, altogether, one of these pens, with the fence, the silt fence, the wire, hardware cloth, and the panels, I think I'm right around $165-ish. Now, take into consideration 330 foot of this fabric, this silt fence, is enough to do quite a few chicken coops, and I was able to do the barriers around my coops. So there's a lot to be said for what one cost me versus 3 or 4. And that includes the wire too. You buy a nice long spool of wire, a hardware cloth, whatever, you can use it for multiple pens, so each one gets cheaper. So the average for 3 or 4 of these would probably be around, I'd say, $120. And you know, whatever your tools are that you buy to make the job easier. So, you know, again, I had high tensile fencing laying around. I have a giant spool of it. You don't need to buy a giant spool. It's very inexpensive to buy a 100-foot strand of high tensile wire from any of your farm stores. You don't have to buy the big spool unless you're going to use it to fence. So I wanted to show these to people because this is totally genius idea. This is a totally efficient, cost-effective way for you to house your birds during the spring, summer, and fall. I want to reiterate, these are summertime breeding pens, spring, summer, fall, which means they'll spend the majority of their time this year out in these pens. In the cold season, we move them to another location, but with this setup, with this design, the ability has been brought forth to maybe even close in a side, insulate it, do something to where they never have to move, and the ability to be able to add to them. So let's say that a flock gets bigger, or a flock is, there's more birds in one single breeding flock. It's nothing for me to come in, cut some wire, take down that panel on the end, and add an entirely new hoop and wrap it. Nothing to stop me from doing that. It wouldn't even be a hard thing to do. It would take a little bit of time, but I could expand this, and you can start from the beginning and make it 4 panels wide. I mean, you can have an entire chicken flock inside one of these. Now, there's a lot to be said about a stationary coop versus a mobile coop, and there is a little bit more maintenance that needs to be done with a stationary coop. And the health of your birds is determined by how well you keep these systems. So keeping them in dirt and in good soil is a better option than keeping them on bedding all the time. But there's a lot to be said for types of bedding, because you can go in and clean it up and throw it in the compost pile, and there you go. You're making very good garden soil for your veggies and your trees and your plants, and that's an incredible system to follow. Now, we do light bedding, but I'll come in with a shovel and I'll just scrape the topsoil, just scoop it, just scrape the very top of it and make a pile and get all of their poop out of it, and I'll put that in a wheelbarrow, and I'll take that to the compost pile. And so we deal with a more concentrated compost system. So, none of this was really hard. This took me 2 afternoons, broke down over a couple days. I think I had maybe 8 hours in all of this. But that third coop will only take me about 45 minutes to an hour to complete, because I've done it twice now. So this system versus other systems, it's incredible, and I recommend this. That guy, Mountain Rooster, again, we're not affiliated with him. I don't know him. It was just a video I stumbled across, and he was the first person I've seen, and there's probably more, it's just one that I've seen, that didn't use any lumber in the building of this. Now, we still have to add roosting bars. We still have to add our nest boxes. It's only been, 2 days. We have a lot to do still, but this as a whole is a much better design and much better system than anything else that I've tried. We have built $1,000 chicken tractors for layers. We have done greenhouses. We have done stationary lumber coops. We have done a lot of things over the last few years that, well, they cost a lot of money and they didn't make sense. So this, to me, makes sense. The greatest thing about this, never mind the hardware cloth underneath, never mind that. But if I pulled these stakes out of this, I could get in the center of this and I could lift it up and I could move it to any location on my property. I could put it in the grass, I could put it in the shade, I could put it in the dirt, I can move it anywhere, and they can live there. If you wanted to clean out a tree line and make it really flat and nice, there's good soil, there's lots of worms, there's lots of benefits for them in that area. And the more that they poop on it, and the more they feed from it, and the more water they spill in it, the more worms are going to come, and you're going to have bugs, and you're going to have all kinds of things. It creates a natural ecosystem, a natural environment for a chicken. The only thing that you've done is you've enclosed them, and you've done what you can to keep them safe. And again, there needs to be other infrastructure on your property to keep your birds safe. With breeding programs specifically, they are designed to keep a group of birds together so they never separate, and this way you don't end up crossbreeding, misbreeding, or having to set yourself back a few weeks. So I thought I would share this. I hope it's beneficial. Simple ties, hog rings, fabric. I made it tight at the bottom. I staked it. I overlapped it. And then these are natural wood chips that come from a tree company that sit in a pile over on the other side of my property. They've been there for a long time, and they're finally getting use from it now. So when we walk in here, we're not walking through a muddy mess. The birds There's an absorption process with the rainwater, and it just collects and it will pool and it will go a different direction, which is going to help us keep our eggs cleaner. You know, there's a lot of things that you can benefit from in a system like this. I don't suggest that you go out and spend a ton of money with wood and boards and things and try to frame one of these out and build a big old door. Don't suggest that right away. What I suggest is 3 cattle panels, some hardware cloth, some chicken wire. Don't even buy the hog ringer. It's like 70 bucks. It came with staples, but get zip ties. It's not going to change anything about the system. All you need to do is make sure these birds stay in. You put your electric wire out there. You put that wire and the protections away on the outskirts of your property. So this way you stop predation. You stop the penetration of raccoons and minks and coyotes and foxes. Oh my God, foxes, don't get me started. But we're not gonna have a discussion about foxes today. So, high tensile fence wire to pull your panel. 7-foot cut, which 2 of those can come from one panel. Then you have a 4-stay section. So how many panels do you need? This many. But 4 panels give you the doors for 3 other coops. So that means your next one is only 3 panels. So take that in consideration. It's not a huge investment if you consider that over time that you can build a system like this and house multiple birds in the spring, summer, and fall for next to nothing. Compared to a chicken coop right now, blow your mind. What if say, I added a wooden chicken coop right here on the backside. If I wanted to add an enclosed coop, simply cut out some of these stays, build a ramp, pin these directly to your wooden coop, and bam, now you have a chicken run. You have an enforced protective chicken run. You have a year-round coop that can include your nest boxes. The sky's the limit with this. That's what I love about YouTube and innovation and all of these things, because somebody can come up with an idea, make a video about it, and you can take that idea and you can improve upon it. You can even make it worse. It doesn't matter. The point is to take what I'm showing you and make it better. Make it suit you, make it fit your needs, and have fun with it. I mean, this was a ton of fun. I did this all by myself. I didn't need an extra hand. I didn't need help. My kids would have loved to have helped. They were in school. They were gone all day, and we're busy at night with sports. So throughout the day, I've been able to build these. Didn't take long. Worth doing. I recommend this. Check that guy out. He'll go through all the processes. I hope that I did. Just pin the chicken wire, the dog lot. I mean, whatever you have available to you, use it. Keep your birds in, and you can start your own breeding flock now. Doesn't matter how old they are. Doesn't matter how young they are. You start today. And then what you do and what we promote at Blue Ridge Chickens is the never-ending chicken system. Meat birds, egg birds, reproductive, regenerative birds. These birds made these. And we have hundreds more behind them. We have fields of them. You can too. It just starts right here. Find a way to make them happy. Let them bathe in the dirt. Let them be in the shade. Let their water stay cool. They'll drink less. You'll be out here tending to them less. They're digging through the dirt. They're eating more, which means they're eating less feed. All of these things are benefits. You want to produce a regenerative chicken system? Build one of these, get some chickens, go to work. That's it. Hope you guys have a great day. And I really, truly hope that 2023 allows us to post some more videos about our projects. And most importantly, I thank you guys that have been following along, supporting our website, supporting our farm. And I mean, none of this is done without you. So hope you guys have an awesome day. We'll see you next time.